This morning, I'd like us to turn our hearts and minds and spirits to the subject, shift. Shift. We're looking at Luke, the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 11, and I'm reading the Voice translation. And it reads thusly. On the banks of the Gennesaret Lake, a huge crowd, Jesus in the center of it, presses in to hear his message from God. Off to the side, fishermen are washing their nets, leaving their boats unattended on the shore. Jesus gets into one of the boats and asks its owner, Simon, to push off and anchor a short distance from the beach. Jesus sits down and teaches the people standing on the beach. After speaking for a while, Jesus speaks to Simon. Move out into deeper water and drop your nets to see what you'll catch. Simon is perplexed, but he says, Master, we've been fishing all night, and we haven't caught even a minnow. But, all right, I'll do it if you say so. Simon then gets his fellow fishermen to help him let down their nets, and to their surprise, the water is bubbling with thrashing fish, a huge school. The strands of their nets start snapping under the weight of the catch. So the crew shouts to the other boat to come out and give them a hand. They start scooping out the fish out of the nets and into their boats, and before long, their boats are so full of fish, they almost sink. Simon's fishing partners, James and John, two of Zebedee's sons, along with the rest of the fishermen, see this incredible haul of fish. They're all stunned, especially Simon. He comes close to Jesus and kneels in front of his knees. I can't take this, Lord. I'm a sinful man. You shouldn't be around the likes of me. And Jesus says, don't be afraid, Simon. From now on, I'll ask you to bring me people instead of fish. The fishermen haul their fish, heavy boats, to land, and they leave everything to follow Jesus. There's a rhyme and reason to miracles. Did you know? Now, miracles are extraordinary things, but there's a shape that they take when they're going to happen. Jesus speaks to the people who have come to hear him. He's got a reputation by now. People know when he speaks, he's actually talking about something. And he's been known to perform a miracle or two. And so they drop what they're doing and they gather on the beach to listen to what he says. Jesus speaks directly to the people, and then he speaks directly to his disciple, Simon. He gets them in position to participate in a miracle. Do you know that you and I can be gotten into position to participate in a miracle? Miracles don't just happen because they happen. They happen because God sets us up to receive them. His directions are first to Peter, who's the leader. He says three things. Move out into deep. If you and I want God to do something for us, we got to first be listening to get the directions and do what he says. Move out. Where you are isn't going to work. What you're doing right now doesn't work. How you've always done it, who you've always seen, what you've always believed, what you've always expected, that's not going to work. I need you to move. I need you to shift. Have you ever shifted in bed just a little bit and all of a sudden you're comfortable? A shift doesn't have to be a ginormous thing. It can be the tiniest movement, but it's enough to get us comfortable. It's enough to be all right. And the definition of living being is that we change. You can tell we're not alive if we're not changing. Now, we can be alive or dead emotionally, alive or dead physically, alive or dead mentally, alive or dead spiritually. But alive is what we ought to be if we're human beings. And if you and I are going to be followers of Christ, disciples, we have to change at God's directions. We have to shift. And sometimes we think the shifting is going to be too much for us, but it almost always just takes the tiniest little movement, the tiniest change of our minds, the tiniest looking at things with a different perspective. Shift. Daughters and sons of God, change your mind. Change our minds. Look at it from a different angle. Jesus says to Simon, move out into the deep. Because if you stay on the shore, you're not going to get any fish. If you don't get any fish, you're not going to eat. Living things need to eat, do we not? And then he says, drop your net. Once you move out, steady yourself, stand firm, wait, be still, and see what's going to happen. Now Simon hears the directions, move, drop, see? But he is tired, y'all. He's been up all night fishing. And he does not understand what Jesus is saying. And you can imagine he's a little bit miffed. He objects, Master, we have been out here fishing all night and we haven't caught so much as a minnow, Jesus. But if you say so. So Peter objects because the direction seems impossible and he's tired of trying. You ever been tired of trying? Try everything you know. And especially if it's something that you want, it's something I want, you try this, that doesn't work, you try that, the other, that doesn't work. And then we get tired and disgusted. And I think Peter's about there. He said, we've been out all night, Jesus. All night. And we haven't caught a thing. And then he realizes that Jesus has given him a direct order. Perhaps a split later, he remembers what he's already seen Jesus do, and where Jesus has already taken him. And so he obeys. He recruits the other disciples, the other fishermen, his fellow fishermen, to follow Jesus' directions. Move, stop, see. This is how miracles work. God gives a direction to somebody who hears it. And 9 times out of 10, the miracle can't happen without participation of those involved. And so Peter hears it. He's the leader. He hears, and then he tells what he's heard. He tells what he's heard. And so he and the other fishermen go out to do what Jesus tells them to do. Move, drop, see. He gets his fellow fishermen to help them let down their nets, and to their surprise, because like Peter, they've been out there all night. Now, I don't know if you seen me when I'm real tired. I'm not very pleasant. I tend to be a baby kid. I will read all night if I'm not careful. But the way I absolutely know I am too tired is when I can't stand to hear any more sounds. I can't stand to see any more lights. I'm done. And I go, oh yeah, I'm at the end of me. And so that's when I go, okay, it's all over. I can't do another thing. I've given this day everything I had. Good night. And if you catch me in that moment, our encounter will not be very pleasant because I just told you I'm through. And I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to have to respond to anything. I'm done. But these men who've already been up all night, haven't seen anything. They're pretty sure that there's not one fish in the Gennesaret lake. They hear Peter give direction as he's been given direction, and so they go out and let their nets down. These waters where they haven't caught so much as a minnow all night are suddenly teeming with fish and fish and fish and fish that their nets began to tear from the weight of the fish they caught. And then the crew shouts to those in the other boat, "Come help with the catch." So they too move, drum, and see. So Peter hears Jesus' direction. Then Simon Peter turns to the fishermen and the disciples who were with him and says, Jesus says, "Move out, drop, see." And they do it. And then there are all these fish. They are in the middle of a miracle. And Jesus can use them to make it happen because they followed his instructions. They moved out into the deep, got away from what they're used to doing, got away from, in fact, what they think must be the only way to do it. And they drop their nets. They steady themselves. They go where Jesus told them to go, and they steady themselves, and they wait there. And all of a sudden, they see what Jesus has made happen. There are fish, 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 where there had absolutely been no fish, fish, fish. And they go, "Oh my goodness." It's rather like the lepers who Jesus healed, and on the way, they notice that their flesh isn't rotting anymore, that they are healed. These men are in the middle of the miracle that Jesus just wrought because they obeyed. And like you and I, when you realize the power of God, because they know there were no fish there all night. They don't understand why there are fish there all of a sudden, except that there must have been a miracle. And Simon says, "Woof, you need to get away from me, Jesus. I'm not fit. I'm not worthy to be around you. I'm a sinner." And Jesus says, "Simon, I'm going to make you a fisher of people. Not only do you get to fish for fish, but I'm going to make you fishers of men and women." And I say to you, my brothers and sisters, that this direction to move, drop, and see what God can do was not just to Peter, not just to Andrew and John, not just to the fishermen on that shore, but for all fishermen and women to come for all time. Listen for the voice of God. And when we hear his direction, move out into the deep. See where God wants you and I to go. Drop anchor. Drop. Plant yourself where God has planted you. I plant myself where God has planted me. I've never lived anywhere as an adult that God didn't show me I was supposed to be. And when we're in place, no matter what happens, good, bad, or indifferent, when I'm in place, I feel the peace of God. And when we move out to the newer places, the places we maybe didn't want to be, and then drop anchor and see what God has to do, we begin to see God pull all the pieces together, put the puzzle together, bring the fish to us, and we can put them up and tell them the good news. We live in a world where God can change any situation in the blink of an eye. Any situation in the blink of an eye. Do not weary of well-doing, for in due season God will show up, and a place that had no fish will be full of them. A place that had no hope will be full of hope. The despair in you will disappear like morning dew. The hopelessness will all of a sudden become joy. The anger will become joy. The desolation, the sadness, the bereavement, all the things that you and I are liable to experience as human beings, it will put it in God's hands. It will listen for God's direction. You will hear him say, "I need you to move out from that place. I need you to move out from despair. I need you to move out from doubt. I need you to move out from meanness. I need you to move out from not trusting anybody anywhere. I need you to shift so I can bless you. And don't you know God never blesses us without blessing somebody else? Shift. I know you don't want to, but we got to shift. We've got to change because we're alive. And being alive means we have to change. We can't stay where we were. We have to move out into the deep, which is the places we don't know, the places we don't trust, among people we may not know and don't know if we can count on. Even if I can't count on anybody else, y'all, I can count on God. Amen. Even if you can't count on anyone else, you can count on God. So shift. Move. Do what God says. And you and I will find ourselves in the middle of a miracle because that's how God works. Shift, brothers